I experienced every possible symptom you could possibly experience with DPDR. I'm pretty sure that I did. I mean, I thought that I was in the darkest place and I was never going to find my way out. And just know that your case is not any different than anybody else's. And if you keep working at it and you find the source of your anxiety, or even if you don't find the source of your anxiety and just learn how to figure it out, you're going to get better. I mean, it's a given. Keep pushing, because the day will come where you're healed and life is beautiful. And when you are out of it, it just is just back to being beautiful now.
Hey everyone, I'm Sean O'Connor, author of the Depersonalization Manual, and today we're doing a follow-up interview with someone we've spoken to before to discuss life after Depersonalization Derealization Disorder and long-term DPDR recovery. So today I'm speaking with Marianne Manning from Kentucky in the USA. Now, most of you will already have seen Marianne's first interview, which we did about 6 months ago. If you haven't seen it, I'll link to it in the video description, so check it out when you get a chance. But just to recap, Marianne is 43 years old, and her experience with Depersonalization Derealization Disorder was triggered by a reaction to a migraine treatment given to her in hospital. Her symptoms included severe cognitive and memory issues, feeling disconnected from everything and everyone, emotional numbness, existential thoughts, and vision changes. Marianne's story got a big response when we posted it first, not least because of the circumstances of what had triggered the condition. Her story resonated with a lot of people who had gone through a similar experience. And Marianne has kindly agreed to do a follow-up interview to discuss what long-term life after depersonalization disorder is really like. Marianne, you're very welcome back to the channel. Thanks for being with us today.
I'm happy to be back. Thanks for having me.
Of course. It's great to see you and great to have you on the channel again. So how is life in Kentucky at the moment?
It's cold, but it's good. We've had some good weather, so I'm not going to complain.
Good. And you're in the racehorse business, is that right?
I am. I kind of took a break from it. I'm more focused on barrel racing right now. So I've set goals for myself for barrel racing and trying to accomplish those goals. So yeah.
Yes, indeed. I in fact, I remember asking you about barrel racing the last time we spoke. But work is good and business is good?
Yep, great. Everything's great.
That's fantastic. I'm delighted to hear it. So Marianne, how has life been since we last spoke, and with a bit of distance on your experience with DPDR?
It's been busy. I feel like I'm catching up on a lot of things that I neglected in the 2 years that I had DPDR. So yeah, I've had like family visiting, and as you know, I got my son back because I couldn't take care of him for the 2 years that I had DPDR. So he's pretty challenging. He has special needs. So, and I am single mom to him. So he's pretty challenging. So I'm stay pretty busy with him. And he actually got his first job this year. He just turned 18. So he just got his first job. And it was at a haunted house. So we did that for the whole month of September, October. And that kept us pretty busy. I mean, it was 4 nights a week, but it was like from like 6 in the afternoon till like 12 midnight. And he just wanted to go every single day, but it was good. He enjoyed it. So yeah, that kept us pretty busy. And with work and barrel racing and yeah.
That's fantastic. Sounds like you're very busy and life is back to normal. So Marianne, how has your perspective on mental health shifted in the meantime, or has it?
It has completely. So I never struggled with any mental health problems. I had like some health anxiety here and there when I was growing up. Like my mom used to call me a hypochondriac, but I always used to I guess the word is like judge people like that face mental health problems. And I never really understood I guess the best way to put it is I never really understood, well, how can you just be depressed? Like life is so great. How can you be depressed? Or why can't you control your anxiety? Like, there's nothing to be worried about. Like I always judged people in that sense. Um, and like my sister struggles with it, and she struggled with it her whole life. And I always judged her. And now I look at it like in a whole different perspective. I look at it like you can't control that stuff. Those are things that are out of your control. And like I just feel so much more sympathetic. And like I want to advocate for people more so now with the struggles of mental health, because let's be honest, our healthcare system is terrible. And I think people that struggle with mental health don't get the help that they need. So I feel like I need to advocate for that now. So yeah, it's definitely changed my perspective for sure.
Yeah, yeah. I would have had a very similar experience in this. I mean, I was 25 when it happened to me, but I remember having an awareness of like, maybe friends or, um, you know, like a girlfriends who may have had struggles with like anxiety or depression, and it just, to me, it was just like that. I just thought, well, just, just don't do that. Just don't be depressed. Just do a couple of basic things and that'll sort you out, like, as if it was kind of flicking a switch.
Yeah.
And for me, going through the experience of DPDR and anxiety really gave me a strong sense of humility, and it made me realize that it's not about your personality type. It's not about, anything you may have like done correctly or incorrectly, or the type of life you've led. Like, that this is like, panic attacks and anxiety are like the most common thing in the world, and they can happen to anyone. And for the people who are in it, especially towards the start, the idea of just, someone telling them to just kind of click out of it is really not helpful. So it did give me a really strong sense of perspective and humility, but that has benefited me in the meantime in being able to communicate with people about their experiences.
When I got so angry when like my mother, for example, like I know she felt for me and she was there for me, but she like when people just tell you like, just get over it. Like just it's like, no, you can't just get over it. It doesn't happen that way. Like, no, it's not like I can be like, oh, give me some ice cream and I'm better. No, it's not like that. Like, and before all of this happened, I never really understood how like people could end their life. Like, I would be like, what's so bad in your life that would make you want to end your life? Well, sure enough, I got the rude awakening, and now, I mean, I understand how people struggle, and it's really, really sad.
Yeah. And it's something that someone mentioned to me in an interview recently as well, or the, worrying that like discussing things like suicidal ideation, it's such a delicate subject, but I think it is important to be open about it. And I remember when we spoke, Marianne, you were very open about it, and I appreciated that. And I know many people who watched the interview did as well. When we are open about that aspect of it, it makes it easier to talk about, and it makes it shines some light on it, and in a way kind of demystifies it, and it also just kind of puts it in perspective as just it's a not uncommon part of the experience. Because if you're going through something like DPDR and you feel like you're, especially at the start, when you feel like your life has been taken away and you can't function anymore and your career is gone, your connection with your family is gone, in your case, literally having to have someone take care of your son on your behalf, then that sense of loss can be so profound that it can have, it can generate some very like dark thoughts. But again, in speaking openly about it and being candid about it, it again brings it into the light and says, no, it's okay to have had these thoughts, but it's also important to be able to speak about them and speak to a medical professional if necessary.
I knew that I needed help because I knew I was in a very dark place. And that's like, whoever watched my interview will know that I actually admitted myself to an impatient place because I knew that if I didn't do something, that it was not going to be a good outcome. Like I was in a really, really, really dark place.
What is one thing that you can do now, Marianne, that you were certain you wouldn't be able to do when you had anxiety and DPDR?
That's so easy. I can shop. I'm a big shopper. I love to shop. Um, when I had DPDR, I could not go into a store and without being disassociated. I would walk into that store and my mind would just shut off. Like I couldn't function. Like I would walk into that store, I would forget what I was in there for. Um, my mind would just completely just shut off. I I would just feel really uncomfortable. Like I wouldn't recognize where I was, or I'd go back out to my car and I wouldn't know I parked. But now I can go into a store and my mind stays at ease and I can shop and I can take my time and I can look for things. Driving is a big one of them. Driving is a big thing. I couldn't really drive without being disassociated. I would look straight ahead and I would just like try to listen to music, but the music wasn't like really connecting with me. And it's just a really awkward feeling, but I can drive now. I can drive very long distances. Like I've driven like 20 hours at a time to pick my son up. So, yeah, I can drive again. I can do everything that I once did before. So, yeah, everything I can do. Yeah, I can take care of my son. I can take care of my home. Everything.
Mm. Is there one specific memory that that is that's your favorite memory since recovery? Is there one moment or instance that that was a big that feels quite precious to you?
No, they all are gains for me. There's not one in particular. Everything that has come back to me, I'm so grateful for. So I cannot, obviously getting my son back. But I'm not going to say that was easy because it wasn't. But that was obviously a big one for me. But no, everything has been just a gain. I can't pick out one specific thing that's been fantastic.
Yeah.
Because everything has. So
Yeah. Yeah. So when you look back at your experience with DPDR now, Marianne, do you look at it with a sense of purpose, or how do you kind of contextualize it in your life? Or is it just something you kind of rather forget?
I do look at it like it has changed my perspective on life and it has changed things for the better. It's made me more goal oriented, if that makes sense. Like I dropped out of high school to pursue my career for horse racing, and I just finished my GED. So and I did that all within the 6 months that I last talked to you.
I see your what?
GED, my GED.
What?
It's so if you drop out of high school in the United States, you can go and take a test where they give you your high school diploma. It's called a GED.
Oh, right.
Oh yeah. So I've accomplished that. So that's a big plus for me. So yeah, it's made me more goal oriented. Like I'm doing things that I don't think I would have been motivated to do prior because I didn't really have that outlook on life, I guess. I just kind of went day by day before it. Now it's like, now I'm looking towards the future, if that makes sense. Yeah.
That's fantastic. What's involved with the GEDs? Is that like kind of studying from home and then doing a series of tests, or what?
So I actually have a teacher. We do Zoom meetings, and it's a series of tests. It's like it's like a math test, science, reading, and social studies. So you have to pass all four of those tests in order to get your GED. Yeah, and they're time tests. So you go and take the test, and then
yeah. Isn't it so wild that when you're going through something like DPDR and for me at one point, I know it was for you as well, Marianne, like the idea of going outside your door felt impossible. Like the sky looked terrifying. Everything was terrifying. And then you recover and push yourself into something like, not push yourself, but you commit yourself to doing something like the GET, which is, it's studying, and it's commitment, and it's a challenge, and it's intellectually demanding, and you do it, and you do
Yeah.
it, and but it's such a great just kind of demonstration of how completely you get back to normal. And not only that, but you're kind of more motivated afterwards. I certainly was when I did I was doing a master's degree when I was recovering. And it was one of the best things I could have done, because it challenged me in all the right ways that my brain wanted, as opposed to continually focusing on anxiety and DPDR, I didn't want to do that anymore,
No. And I still have bouts of anxiety. And I'm always like, for a little while, like they were happening like closer together, but now they've kind of spread out a bit. But like when I would have those bouts of anxiety, I would be terrified that it would bring on DPDR again, but it hasn't. So I think I've trained my mind a little bit to just, when I do have those bouts of anxiety, just kind of sit with it for a second and then just push it off. But no, it's definitely a motivator for me, this DPDR. It definitely has been. Like I said, I'm not happy I've gone through it. I lost 2 years of my life going through it, but maybe it was just to make my life better for the future,
And it's something I'd spoken about recently in other interviews, Marianne, but I think one of the mistakes that people make in what they expect from recovery is that once you recover from anxiety, you will never experience stress in your life again. That everything's just going to be smooth sailing. It's like, well, no, sure. I mean, no, yeah, I mean, life wasn't smooth sailing before this happened. It's not going to be, because that's not what life is. Like, unless you just avoid every possible challenge. It is a normal, natural, it's a correct thing to experience is anxiety. If you're working, if you're challenging yourself, even if you're socializing, if you're raising a kid, relationships, etc., you're going to experience stress, and that is a part of the human experience, and it is not just to be expected, it's to be welcomed, because it strengthens you and it builds character. But that is very different from DPDR, which or depersonalization disorder, which is the kind of constant experience of being in fight or flight mode, which makes it very difficult to function, because your brain is essentially saying, "Are you in danger? Are you in danger?"
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And when you are in DPDR and you do have to deal with the stresses of life, it does make your DPDR episodes, I feel like, more intense. But just because they're getting more intense doesn't mean that they're not going away. I guess it's the best way to put it.
Yeah. Yeah. Those ups and downs on the path to recovery are absolutely to be expected.
Yeah. It's like a roller coaster ride for sure.
Yeah.
I mean, there's times where I thought that I was recovered, and then bam, it would hit me again. And so I never wanted to really talk about it. Like, I never wanted to be like, oh yeah, I'm out of DPDR, because then I would be like, I just jinxed myself. So, but yeah, I've been pretty good. So.
Good. And following on in a similar vein, Marianne, and so do you ever talk to people about your experience? Is it something that when you're socializing with people that you would bring up, or is it something that you kind of keep in the background?
No, I definitely talk about it. I do talk about it because, like, when you meet new people, I don't know, like, and you're just conversing, and like they talk about something and it kind of resonates with you in some sense, and then you bring it up and you talk about it. And I'm also in a group on Facebook with a bunch of people who actually had the same reaction to the injection that I had. I mean, tons of them struggle with DPDR, and a lot of them reach out to me about it as well. So, like, I try to talk to them about it. But no, I definitely am not shy about talking about it for sure. I think it needs to be talked about. I think it will help people who are actually going through it to like come forward and get help for it instead of just sitting with it and worrying, you know.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. And in the years after I first recovered, I didn't, I never spoke about it. I mean, even when after I wrote the book, I kept those parts of my life completely separate, and I would never ever speak about it to people in a social setting. And and then after a couple of years passed, I started doing that, and because of course my fear was that if I start saying things like, "Oh, I had this condition and it was really scary," and it made me feel like I was in a dream and I wasn't real, that people would be just like,
Looking at you like you're crazy.
"Yeah, what's wrong with your man? Why is he telling me this?" Like, you know. But in fact, the opposite has been consistently true. Um, you know, when you say that, like, I had an anxiety based condition for 2 years, and it kind of crippled me for that time, and it was very painful, but I got through it. And I mean, first of all, it's what people connect with is that it's anxiety, because everyone can connect with anxiety. And then what I've also found is that, like, so many people, when you describe the feelings of DPDR, they go, "Oh, I've had that," you know. I mean, maybe not as long as you've had it, like, but you know, I've absolutely felt that. Or oh yeah, I get that when I get when I have panic attacks. Um, and just being open about it again normalizes it and makes it okay to talk about it, and increases awareness of it. So
Yeah,
it's only positives, you know.
yeah,
And
definitely. I get that.
yeah, when you look back on how this started, I remember that when we spoke first, you had a strong sense of frustration with it,
Yeah.
that you hadn't gotten the answers that you wanted, as as quickly as you would have liked. In the meantime, becoming having fully understood it and speaking about it so openly in places like Facebook groups, how has your perspective on it changed, if at all?
So I'm still frustrated with it. I'm obviously still frustrated with it. I'm not frustrated. What frustrated me about the whole thing was I had to find the answers myself and with the help of you. I'm frustrated at the fact that like our medical system sucks. Um, but as far as like my perspective on it, I don't think it's really changed. I think, you know, I'm happy to be where I am today. I don't really I'm still frustrated with the whole thing, like with what I went through but I mean I'm over it, I guess the way to put it, you know.
Yeah,
If
that's
that's no answer to your question.
no, absolutely, absolutely, and I think that's a very positive and healthy perspective to have on it. Is that that was a difficult thing that happened, but um, I understand what happened. I'm over it, and now I'm helping people where I can with it. You know.
Yeah, I definitely want to help you for sure.
Yeah, yeah. Um, as I'm sure you know, Marianne, there's often a strong sense of skepticism from people uh who are going through DPDR, who feel that they can't recover, or they often feel like, well, my story is different, or my symptoms are different, and people come up with different reasons for why they can't recover. What would you say to somebody with DPDR watching this interview who is thinking, well, Marianne's story is nice, but recovery isn't going to happen for me?
I would say that I experienced every possible symptom you could possibly experience with DPDR. I'm pretty sure that I did. And I, just like them, thought that there was no way out. I mean, I thought that I was in the darkest place and I was never going to find my way out. Like, and I always looked. I think a big thing for me was I was looking for somebody else to help me out of it, and that's not going to happen. You have to find your way out by yourself, and that requires the help of other people. But in order for you to heal and get better, you need to put the work in to do it. Um, and you will get there. And it's not an overnight thing. You're not going to wake up one day and be like, oh, yeah, hey, I'm great again. No, it definitely doesn't work like that. And like, as you explained in many of your videos, it's not a linear process whatsoever. And you're going to think like you're not healing, but it's coming. I mean, that's part of the process, and you will get there, and you will feel again, and you will love again. And I mean, I never, it's so like when I was in my deepest part of the DPDR, I thought to myself, I'm never going to love anybody again. Like, I'm never going to feel that feeling of love again, or like that I'm never going to laugh again. And I do, I mean, I lost connection with my son, and now I look at him and the love is more than ever. So you will get there. You just got to keep doing the work and keep pushing, because the day will come where you're healed and you're going to thank Sean.
It's interesting what you mentioned about, you said looking for somebody else to help me out. And it's something I spoke to somebody else about recently. And we get into this idea with DPDR that I need to find what's causing it, but what's causing it has to be an external factor. So it has to be, something that I can diagnose and bring to a hospital and somebody else will fix for me. So the example that somebody gave in the interview was, at one point he became convinced that he had some sort of intestinal parasite, right? So the intestinal parasite was depleting his serotonin levels, which was causing the anxiety. And he said he went to his doctor, and the doctor was like, that's not what's happening, And he said that when he looked back on that situation, that what he was looking for was an external factor. Like what can I point to that can be taken out of me or adjusted slightly so that I can wake up tomorrow and this is gone. But as you were saying, Marianne, part of recovery is understanding that that it's part of your process and your work to recover from it. But that's actually a really, really positive thing, because once you understand that you do actually have control over these symptoms and you start to make the changes to gain that control, it is absolutely within your power to get this to fade away and stop completely.
I think a big thing for me was I was in denial of having DPDR. And like you said, I was looking for some other diagnosis to validate my symptoms of DPDR. But that's not the case. And I feel like once I accepted the fact that I had DPDR, and once the denial went away, I feel like that's when a change kind of made, like the change it kind of shifted perspectives. I think if you're in denial and you're looking for something, I think denial is just a big part of it. I think if you're denying the fact that you have it and you're not accepting it, then it's harder for you to heal, for sure.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think a part of that probably comes from the experience that most people have on forums when they find them at first, which is that they go onto the forums and they see that there's people who say, oh, I've had this for 5 years, for 10 years, and it's not going away. And your reaction to that is at first panic and then denial that okay, but this cannot be happening to me. So this can't be the thing that I have. So I will look for any other explanation to explain these symptoms, but it can't be this thing that person has had for 10 years. But the reason that person has had it for 10 years, one of the reasons is that because they're on the forums every day. And I know that because I was that person for 2 years.
Oh gosh, I was.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. But it's, it's so interesting. The consistency in people's stories and how they kind of navigate, how they come across this information and then try to kind of deny it and then accept it and then push through it. And what you mentioned as well, Marianne, about recovery not being a linear process, that's absolutely right as well. What I think is really helpful, though, is just the knowledge that it's not going to be a linear process. Because when you understand that and when you can expect it, that then gives you the motivation to move through the ups and downs that come with it. So when you have a day where your anxiety spikes up for whatever reason, your reaction is okay, this is part of the ups and downs and this is part of recovery, as opposed to thinking, oh, I'm back to square one and nothing's been working and I'm finished.
Yeah, and that's what I was
Just
explaining in the beginning. Like I still have bouts of anxiety, but I know how to kind of accept it and roll with it and say, okay, well, just because I'm having this anxiety doesn't mean I'm going to go back to there, you know?
yeah, yeah, absolutely. Marianne, what do you think is the biggest misconception that people have about what it means to be recovered from anxiety and DPDR?
I think when people think about coming out of it, I don't think people that are going through it really think about how it's going to be when you come out of it, if that makes sense. Because I feel like they just feel like they're doomed.
Yeah,
It might
people,
happen, right? I don't.
absolutely, and also people often worry that they think, how can I get back to normal if I can't even imagine what normal was like? I can't remember what it was like to feel normal.
That's a big one. I struggled with that big time. I struggled with that. Like, I asked myself, am I feeling normal? I don't really remember what normal feels like. I asked myself that several times. But I think it just gradually just comes back little by little. And then you're just normal. And you're like, you just look back and you're like, wow, I guess this was what normalcy was like.
Absolutely, and also being back to normal means you're not checking to see if you feel normal anymore.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's true for sure. Yeah, because that's another big thing. I was always checking, and like you said in your videos, if you keep checking and keep reminding yourself, and I did that a lot. I did check. Yeah,
Yeah.
I don't do it anymore. No.
Yeah. And when we're going through, we do that checking, a frantic, constant checking. We do it with the best of intentions because we feel like we need to monitor these feelings and see, are they gone, what's making them better, what's making them worse. And ostensibly that feels like a good idea, but all you're doing invariably is just pointing your attention at these feelings over and over again, and thereby confirming to your brain that they're important. They're important. That's all your brain registers each time is it's important, it's important, it's important, it's important. And as you said earlier, you train yourself away from that. You stop expecting this to be a light switch that goes on or off, even though at the start it may have felt quite sudden and it may have felt like a light switch was clicked on. But in recovery, you train yourself away from those thoughts and feelings, and as you were saying, like you allow those incremental improvements to build up over time. And again, it's that thing of like if you can expect that and just know that that's part of the process becomes a lot easier in that context.
And it's really funny because you look at it like, wow, it didn't take very long for me to train my brain all the negative stuff. It's like it happened overnight for your brain to like just be trained to think negatively. And now you're wanting to change your brain to think positive. And it's like taking a year and a half or however long it took to change it's insane how your brain works. I mean, your brain just automatically wants to go to the negative. So you really, really have to work to keep the positive going. And a lot of things that I did is like, my aunt made me a journal. So I would look at that journal and I would take out like the cards every day and read like affirmations. And, I just tried to keep thinking positive. Like, if I did get some type of symptom, like I knew, so my symptoms waxed and waned, I guess. And so when I wasn't feeling my feelings, I would be like nervous about it. And then I would think to myself, well, I felt my feelings yesterday. And just because I'm feeling them today doesn't mean I'm not going to ever feel them again in my life. You know what I mean? So I'd tell myself like, okay, well, I'm numb today, but yesterday I could cry. So maybe tomorrow I'm going to cry, be able to cry again. I'm not stuck like this forever. Like I will feel again because I felt yesterday. So that's what I had to keep telling myself over and over again. Like, okay, my vision is messed up today. I'm really feeling off, but I felt good 2 days ago. So I'm going to feel good again. And that's what I just had to keep reminding myself over and over and over again when I was having bad days.
Yeah. Yeah. I think as well with with your experience with it, Marianne, as you said earlier, you had every one of those symptoms, and I remember like being in contact with you when you had this first, and you were having a very extremely difficult time. I remember the first time speaking to you on a Zoom call, and yeah, you were really really having an awful time. I just think it's important to understand that when we look at the symptoms that you experienced. I know we just to go through them again: severe cognitive and memory issues, feeling disconnected from everyone and everything, emotional numbness, existential thoughts, vision changes, feeling like your eyes were stuck behind your head, time distortions, not recognizing yourself in the mirror, your surroundings, and the suicidal ideations that came with it as well.
Yeah.
And it's
There was
so
probably more. I mean, I'm sure there was more. Like, I couldn't sleep. Insomnia, had terrible insomnia. I mean, I didn't sleep for, I would say, I checked myself into inpatient when I was probably about 9 months into my DPDR. Um, and I didn't sleep for that 9 months. I literally probably only slept an hour a night. So I really struggled with that. I lost tons of weight. I mean, I went down from like I was 135 and I went down to 113. Unfortunately, I gained it all back. But um, and another thing too, I'm like, yeah, I mean, I went through so many things. It's just insane. It's just totally insane. And the stress of it messed with like my menstruation. Like just so many different, there's just so many different things. Like it's like the DPDR is here and there's branches off of like everything that like comes with it. And it's just insane. Yeah. And it's not something you can really explain to somebody unless they've gone through it or going through it. Like when you try to explain it to somebody, they're like, what? Like, how? Like, that makes no sense, like, but you can't understand it till you actually go through it and you're walking through it and you see what it's like. Cause it's just something just so unimaginable. It's just awful. Yeah.
yeah. And again, like at its core, what it essentially is it's your body and brain reacting as if you were in a life or death situation. It's reacting literally in the same way as if there was a bear chasing you through the woods. So your body and brain are going through all of that. All of these alarm systems are on high alert. But not only is there no bear chasing you, but you're at home and you're just hanging out with your son, or you're trying to get some work done, and your body is saying, no, you're in danger. Are you sure you're not in danger? Um, but it's important, I think, I think you're just, in terms of what you went through, Marianne, just to demonstrate to people as well that, you may feel like you're going through the worst case of this condition that anybody has ever experienced. And the thing is that everybody experiences that. That's what everybody thought is when they go through any anxiety-based condition, is this is the worst one that anyone has ever had. No one will ever understand what I'm going through. But it's just so it's so great with these interviews to see that you can go through like the laundry list of these absolutely like brutal symptoms at the time. They feel just like they're punishing. You can go through all of those and make a complete recovery, because it's not about the symptoms. It's not even about the severity of the symptoms. It's about what's at the core of it being anxiety. And when you address that, the anxiety, the symptoms fade away and stop. This isn't an obstacle course of like absolutely awful symptoms that you have to deal with one by one, even though it absolutely feels like that at the time. But again, I think there's such value in these interviews and seeing, the perspective of somebody like you, Marianne, who went through all of these symptoms, went through so much with it at the time, and has now come out the other side stronger than ever.
And it's like you said, at the end of the day, like, I mean, everybody thinks that their case is different, and because they're having different symptoms, like, they're struggling more than you struggle. But at the end of the day, everybody's struggling in their own way. So just because one is worse than the other, your symptoms are, it doesn't matter, because you can't, somebody else's symptoms to them is just what you're feeling with your symptoms, if that makes sense. So it's like, at the end of the day, you're all going through the same thing, and you're going to come out of it. I mean, that's the best way to put it. If you just deal with it and find a way to focus and work through it, and there's recovery, and it's possible. I mean, look at your channel. There's numerous videos of people who have had it for years, and recovery's there. You know, you just have to keep on at it.
Yeah,
for sure.
Absolutely. So, just so I'm clear on the timeline, Marianne, so how long has it been since you've recovered now?
So I recovered when we did our interview. I think you said 6 months ago. That's where I felt recovered. Like I haven't had, so that was 6 months ago. My injection was 2 years and almost 5 months ago. So I'd say a little, like, it's been about 6, 7 months, 7 months, 8 months. I've been recovered. Yeah.
That's great. So, for anybody watching the channel who may be going through DPDR right now, and maybe going through something very similar to what you went through, Marianne, and having gone through it and recovered yourself, and with the distance of a half a year on your recovery, what advice would you have for people watching the channel?
Just keep pushing. I mean, like I said so many times, you just have to put in the work. I mean, the biggest thing for me, and I'm not just saying this, like, and I still do it now. Like, your videos are like, I watch them still, and I'm recovered. Like, I just keep, like, it's just something that, like, I'm interested in it now. Like, as opposed to being scared of it, it went from being scared to being interested, and to just, like, hearing other people's stories. So, like, for me, I just keep going back to you and watching your videos, and just know that your case is not any different than anybody else's. And if you keep working at it and you find the source of your anxiety, or even if you don't find the source of your anxiety and just learn how to figure it out, you're going to get better. I mean, it's a given. You know, you just got to keep going, because life is beautiful. And when you are out of it, it just is just back to being beautiful again.
That's fantastic advice. And yeah, I know exactly what you mean about it being fascinating, and it really is. I mean, the processes behind anxiety, the way they manifest, the way what endlessly fascinates me is like how our perspective on it changes over time. Because when you're going through it, you think this is the worst thing that has ever happened to any human being ever. And then when you're out of it, you're like, wow, that was really interesting. You know,
yeah, you look back and you're like, yeah, I mean, yeah, because when you're going through it, you're just petrified. And then you're back to being out of it, and you're just like, you know, and it's so funny, because I look back when I was little, and I didn't realize this till just recently. When I was little, and when my mom was calling me a hypochondriac, and I was always worried about having this and this and this, I did have bouts of DPDR. Like, and they weren't obviously as severe as this one was, but I do remember, like, having that feeling of being stuck behind my eyes when I was 11 years old. You know what I mean? So it's like, maybe it was something, and I guess it didn't scare me then, because I just didn't care. I was living my life as a little girl, and I didn't pay any mind to it, and it just disappeared. I think as you get older and you have it, you're just more conscientious to it, and it just manifests differently, I guess.
Absolutely. And it's such a common thing for people to experience moments of DPDR at different times throughout their lives. And when you're a kid and it happens, it might be scary briefly, but then, you have to go and play soccer, or you have to go to a birthday. Yeah, you just get distracted because there's a dog over there, right? But that's what it is. You just just get pulled out of it because you've a kid, you got stuff to do. Um,
Yeah.
but then as we grow up and become adults, we're a lot more kind of aware of our own kind of inner process and our thoughts, and we might have maybe kind of slightly hypochondriac tendencies or health anxiety or whatever. Then we spot that same process happening that happened when you were a kid, but your grown-up mind says, "Oh, what's this? Does this mean something is wrong? Does this mean you're in a dream and you can't wake up? Does this mean you're going crazy?" And then that process of checking in starts.
Yeah, and I think also when you're a kid, you don't really like, I mean, I don't I think when you're a kid, you don't really like recognize like mental health or like schizophrenia or going crazy or or like diseases. Like you're just so dumb to it. Like you're just like, "Oh, okay, well, this is weird, but okay, I'll be fine." You know?
Yeah.
But yeah, as you grow, like I'll tell you what, I could be a doctor right now. I could go to school and I could be a doctor. With all of the research that I have done with this DPDR, I could be a doctor. Like it's just and that's another thing. And my husband at the time, he said this to me. He's like, because I was questioning, a big thing for me was cognitive, right? So we've been through that, like losing my memory and thinking I had Alzheimer's. And he's like, Marianne, if you had Alzheimer's, you could not remember all of the diseases you think you have from researching them if you had Alzheimer's. And I thought to myself, I'm like, that's true. Like, ask me anything about anything medical and I'll give you the answer because I've done that research for the 2 years. So I was like, okay, well, I guess I'm not losing my mind. But anyways, that's a different story. But yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. It's something I encounter with people in the Zoom coaching sessions all the time is people will go through their story, and for a half an hour they'll tell me everything about every little detail about what started this, every symptom they've been experiencing. They'll use metaphors to describe it. They will go off on little kind of like side roads just to illustrate a particular point or a particular experience in their life. And I'll be frantically taking notes going, okay, got it. And then after half an hour of that, they'll say, I think I'm losing my memory.
I think you did this to me one time. I think did. I think we had this conversation. I think you said if you were losing your memory, and actually, I think it was when our very first video. I think you said to me, if you were losing your memory, you wouldn't be telling me your story. So I do remember that. Yeah.
Yeah. It's we have all with anxiety, we have all these like obvious contradictions. But thinking like, what if it's this disease and this disease, even though you don't have a single symptom of that condition, but I'm sure it's this, or I feel like my vision is completely damaged, but you go to the eye doctor and the optometrist is like, there's nothing wrong with your vision. Your prescription hasn't even changed. And then you think I'm definitely losing my memory, even though there's clearly nothing wrong with your memory. Your focus might be a little bit off because oh, who's that?
That's Molly. She just decided to come and say hi.
Molly?
Great Dane. She's a big girl.
Oh, hi, Molly. You're gorgeous.
She's dying. She was so quiet in the living room. She just got up and walked over and stuck her head in my lap.
Yeah. Does she want to contribute to the conversation?
She does. She's actually, I got her halfway through my, when I was still in DPDR, and she helped me a lot. Yeah.
That's great. Yeah.
Just hang out with us for the rest of the interview.
Marianne, it's been so lovely to speak with you again. Thank you for catching up with us on the channel and for sharing your experience with the condition. And I am so happy to see this, that life is back to normal for you and everything is back on track. And I know this is going to be extremely inspirational to people watching the channel. So thank you again. We really appreciate it.
chapter, and I really hope that it helps people for sure.
Yeah, it absolutely will. Thanks so much, Marianne, and take care of yourself. Bye-bye.
Bye.